The galactic community had one rule that nobody dared to break: stay away from Drakenheim. The volcanic moon belonged to the Skrillex, massive reptilian beings that humans call dragons, and they had made it crystal clear that any ship entering their space would be turned to ash. For 300 years, every species in the galaxy had respected that boundary. Ships plotted courses that avoided the region entirely, and parents told their children scary stories about what happened to those foolish enough to ignore the warnings. Jake Mitchell never imagined he would be the one to break that rule. The 38-year-old cargo hauler had been flying the same routes for 15 years, transporting supplies between colonies on the outer rim. His ship was old and patched together with spare parts, but Jake knew every bolt and wire like the back of his hand. He could coax another year out of systems that should have died a decade ago. That skill had kept him in business when newer, fancier ships had bankrupted their owners. This trip was supposed to be routine. Jake had brought his 7-year-old daughter Lily along because her school was on winter break and she loved watching the stars streak past the viewport. She would sit in the co-pilot chair for hours, asking endless questions about nebulas and asteroid fields and whether they might see any aliens at the next trading post. Jake loved those moments with her. Since her mother had passed away 2 years ago, these trips together had become precious. The trouble started when Jake was checking the fuel consumption rates. The numbers made no sense. The reactor was burning through fuel 3 times faster than normal, and the temperature readings were climbing into dangerous territory. Jake's stomach dropped as he pulled up the diagnostic panel and saw error code scrolling across the screen in angry red letters. The containment field around the fusion core was failing, and he had maybe 15 minutes before the whole thing went critical. His hands flew across the controls, trying every emergency protocol he knew. He vented excess plasma, rerouted coolant, shut down non-essential systems. Nothing worked. The reactor was in a cascade failure and there was no stopping it. Jake pulled up the navigation charts with shaking fingers, searching desperately for any port or station within range. Empty space stretched in every direction with one exception. Drakenheim was close, maybe close enough to reach before the engines died completely. Lily came running onto the bridge when the alarms started blaring, her eyes wide with fear. She was still in her pajamas, clutching the worn stuffed rabbit she had slept with since she was 3. "Daddy, what's happening? Why is everything beeping?" Jake forced himself to sound calm even though his heart was pounding. "We've got a problem with the engine, sweetheart. I need you to strap into your seat right now, okay? Nice and tight. Are we going to be okay?" Lily asked as she climbed into the co-pilot chair and fumbled with the harness. Jake wanted to lie, wanted to tell her everything would be fine, but he had always been honest with his daughter. "I'm going to do everything I can to keep us safe. That's a promise." The ship shuddered violently as the containment field collapsed completely. Jake barely managed to angle their trajectory toward Drakenheim before the main engines cut out. They hit the atmosphere at a terrible angle and the ship began to spin. The heat shield screamed in protest as friction turned the hull red hot. Jake wrapped his arms around Lily's chair, using his own body to protect her as best he could. They crashed through a forest of strange crystal formations that shattered like glass against the hull. The ship bounced once, twice, and finally skidded to a stop in a cloud of ash and dust. When everything went still, Jake found himself pinned under a collapsed ceiling panel. Pain exploded through his chest and left leg, so intense that his vision went white for a moment. He could taste blood in his mouth and feel something wrong inside his ribs. Lily was crying but seemed unhurt. Her harness had held, though she had some small cuts on her hands from broken glass. "Daddy? Daddy, I can't get this off." She was struggling with the harness release, her small fingers unable to work the mechanism while she was panicking. "Stop, baby, stop," Jake gasped. "Left side red button. Press and hold." Lily found the button and the harness released. She scrambled out of the chair and tried to lift the panel off her father, but it was far too heavy for a 7-year-old. Jake could see the terror in her eyes, see her trying so hard to be brave, and it broke his heart. He managed to reach the emergency medical kit strapped to the wall and pulled out a syringe of pain suppressant. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it, but he got the injection into his thigh. The medicine dulled the agony to something barely manageable, but Jake knew it was temporary. His leg was crushed, he probably had internal bleeding, and they were stranded on a moon where the inhabitants killed trespassers on sight. "Lily, listen to me very carefully," Jake said, each word taking enormous effort. "The communication system is dead. Nobody knows we crashed here, and even if they did, no rescue ship would come to this place. I need you to go outside and look for shelter. Somewhere safe where you can hide." "I'm not leaving you," Lily sobbed, gripping his hand. "You have to, sweetheart. I'm hurt too badly to move, but you're small and quick. Find somewhere to wait, somewhere out of the open. If you see anything moving, anything at all, you hide and stay quiet. Can you be that brave for me?" Lily was crying so hard she could barely breathe, but she nodded. Jake helped her put on her jacket and made sure she had a water bottle in her pocket. She picked up her stuffed rabbit and looked at her father one more time. "I'll come back for you. I promise. I know you will, baby. I love you so much." Jake watched his little girl climb through the torn hull and disappear into the alien landscape. Then the darkness finally pulled him under and he knew nothing more. Lily had never been so scared in her entire life. The world outside the ship looked like something from a nightmare. Black volcanic rock stretched in every direction, broken up by pools of glowing orange liquid that bubbled and steamed. Strange trees made of crystal chimed softly when the hot wind blew through them. The ground was warm under her feet, and the air tasted like metal and rotten eggs. She walked in a straight line away from the ship, just like her dad had taught her when they went camping. If you get lost, pick a direction and stick with it. Don't wander in circles. She called for help a few times, but her voice sounded tiny and pathetic in the huge empty space. After a while she stopped calling and just walked. Lily didn't know how long she had been walking when she saw the cave. It was enormous, with an opening as tall as her apartment building back home. A soft blue glow came from somewhere deep inside. Every instinct told her that caves were dangerous, that anything could be hiding in there, but she was so tired and scared that all she wanted was to get out of the open. The cave was warmer inside than outside, and the blue glow came from thousands of crystals growing on the walls and ceiling. They were beautiful, like nothing Lily had ever seen before. She followed the light deeper and deeper until she walked into a huge chamber. In the middle of the chamber was a nest made of carefully stacked stones and melted metal, and in that nest were 3 creatures. They were the biggest things Lily had ever seen. Each one was as large as her dad's entire ship, with scales that shifted colors from purple to red in the crystal light. Their heads were shaped like triangles, with mouths full of teeth longer than Lily was tall. They had 6 eyes each, and all 18 eyes locked onto her the moment she stepped into the chamber. The dragon cubs rose to their feet and hissed, a sound like 1,000 snakes all at once. Lily should have run. Every part of her brain screamed at her to turn around and get out of there as fast as she could. But she was only 7 years old, her father was dying, and she had walked for so long that her legs felt like rubber. She just didn't have any more fear left in her. Instead of running, Lily just stood there crying. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the huge creatures. "I didn't mean to bother you. My dad is hurt really bad and I don't know what to do. I just wanted somewhere warm." The cubs tilted their heads in perfect unison, clearly confused by this tiny thing that wasn't running away or trying to fight. Lily took a few stumbling steps forward and then her legs gave out. She sat down hard on the stone floor, hugging her rabbit tight, and cried harder than she had ever cried in her life. The biggest of the 3 cubs made a soft sound, almost like a whimper. It took one careful step toward Lily, then another, until it was close enough that she could feel heat radiating from its scales. Lily looked up through her tears at the massive creature and did something that would later be called either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. She reached out and touched its leg, feeling the smooth warmth of its scales, and then she just leaned against it because she was too tired to hold herself up anymore. The cub froze, not sure what to do. The other 2 moved closer, forming a protective circle around Lily. She was already falling asleep, exhausted beyond anything she had ever felt before. Within minutes, she was out completely, curled up against the warmest cub's side with her breathing slow and steady. The cubs looked at each other in confusion. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Every other species they had ever encountered had either run away screaming or tried to attack them. But this small creature had done neither. She had just asked for warmth and then fallen asleep like she trusted them completely. Slowly, carefully, the 3 cubs adjusted their positions to shelter Lily from the cold drafts that moved through the cave. They had no idea what to do with this situation, but their instincts told them one thing clearly: this small creature needed protection and they were going to provide it. When their mother returned, she would have to figure out what it all meant. Karshiva had been hunting deep in the volcanic trenches when she felt the vibration of something entering Drakenheim's atmosphere. The massive Skrelix's mother was 3 times larger than her cubs, with deep crimson scales that had darkened over her 4 centuries of life. Her 6 eyes could see heat signatures from miles away, and right now those eyes were fixed on the distant crash site where an unauthorized ship had just torn through her territory. Fury burned in her chest as she abandoned her hunt and spread her enormous wings. Another trespasser. Another foolish species that thought the warnings were just empty threats. She had destroyed 7 ships over the past decade, turning them to molten slag before they could even send distress signals. The galaxy needed to understand that Drakenheim was forbidden for a reason, and Karshiva took her role as protector very seriously. She circled the crashed vessel once, her thermal vision detecting a single fading life signature inside the wreckage. Just one survivor, probably dying, no distress beacon active. It looked like an accident rather than a deliberate invasion, but that hardly mattered. The rules were clear. No one came to Drakenheim and lived to tell about it. Still, Karshiva decided to check on her cubs first before dealing with the crashed ship. Her 3 offspring were still young, only 5 years old, and she never liked leaving them alone for long. She would make sure they were safe in the nest, then return to finish what needed to be done with the trespasser. As she approached her cave, something felt wrong. Karshiva could sense a 4th heat signature inside, small and steady, right in the center of where her cubs should be sleeping. Her first thought was that some foolish creature had wandered in looking for shelter. Her second thought was that her cubs might be in danger. That second thought made her blood boil with protective rage. She landed at the cave entrance hard enough to shake loose stones from the ceiling. Her claws gouged deep marks in the floor as she stalked through the passages toward the inner chamber. The blue glow of the nesting area lit her path, and she prepared to unleash fire on whatever threat had dared enter her home. What she saw stopped her cold. Her 3 cubs were arranged in a protective triangle around a tiny human child. The small creature was fast asleep, curled against her youngest cub's side with one arm wrapped around a worn stuffed toy. The child's face was streaked with dried tears, and her breathing was deep and peaceful. But what shocked Karshiva most was her cub's reaction. When she took a step forward, all 3 of them moved to block her path. Karshiva rumbled deep in her chest, a sound that would have sent most species fleeing in terror. Move aside. Her cubs didn't budge. Instead, they pressed closer together, forming an even tighter barrier around the sleeping child. This was unheard of. Skrillex cubs were taught from hatching to obey their parents immediately and without question. They had never disobeyed her, not once in their 5 years of life. Yet here they were, actively protecting an alien intruder from their own mother. Karshiva's anger began to shift into confusion. She extended her thermal vision and examined the child more carefully. The human was young, probably equivalent to a Skrillex hatchling. She had minor injuries, cuts and bruises that suggested recent trauma. But there was no weapon, no armor, nothing that could be considered threatening. Just a scared child in pajamas holding a stuffed animal. How did this creature enter our nest? Karshiva demanded. Her smallest cub, Tira, made a series of soft chirps and gestured with her snout toward the cave entrance. The child had walked in on her own, openly, without trying to hide or sneak. And you allowed this? Her largest cub, Resh, responded with clicks and rumbles that Karshiva understood to mean, she was crying. She was tired. She asked for help. This made no sense. Skrillex cubs were born with instincts about danger and prey. They could identify threats from their first day out of the shell. Every other species that had ever approached a Skrillex nest had triggered immediate defensive responses. Hissing, fire-breathing, aggressive displays meant to drive intruders away. Yet this human child had somehow walked past every single one of those instincts. Karshiva moved closer and her cubs tensed but held their ground. She lowered her massive head until her eyes were level with the sleeping child. The human stirred slightly, mumbling something in her sleep. Karshiva caught fragments of human language, words about someone called Dad, and something being hurt and needing help. A fresh tear rolled down the child's cheek even though she remained asleep. Something deep in Karshiva's memory stirred, something ancient that she couldn't quite grasp. She needed to understand what had happened here, needed to know why her cubs were behaving so strangely. She settled onto her haunches, making herself less threatening, and addressed her cubs in a gentler tone. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Through gestures, sounds, and the limited telepathic bond that Skrillex shared with their young, the story emerged. The child had stumbled into the cave, clearly exhausted and terrified. When she saw the cubs, she had frozen in place like most prey does. But then, instead of running or screaming, she had done something remarkable. She had apologized. She had explained that her father was hurt. She had asked if she could stay somewhere warm. And then she had reached out and touched Tira, actually placed her tiny hand on a Skrillex cub's scales before falling asleep. What disturbed Karshiva most was how her cubs felt about the situation. They were genuinely worried about this human child. Tira kept adjusting her position to make sure the child stayed comfortable. Resh had tried to bring water earlier, though his enormous claws made it nearly impossible. Her middle cub, Vek, had been keeping watch, making sure nothing else entered the cave that might disturb the sleeping child. They were treating this human the exact same way they would treat another Skrillex cub who needed care. Karshiva activated the communication crystal embedded in the cave wall. Within moments, the images of 5 elder Skrillex appeared, their expressions shifting from curious to shocked when they saw what was being broadcast from her nest. Matriarch Karshiva, the eldest counselor, began, his voice heavy with age and authority. Explain this situation immediately. A human ship crashed in the Northern Territories, Karshiva reported. A child from that ship entered my nest. My cubs have accepted her presence and are protecting her from me. I need to access the ancient records. There is something here I don't understand, something about humans. The council members exchanged meaningful looks. The eldest disappeared briefly, then returned carrying a data crystal that glowed with amber light. We have not accessed these records in 3,000 years, he said slowly. They tell of a time when our species was nearly extinct. Do you truly believe this is relevant? I believe my cubs recognize something I have forgotten, Karshiva replied, watching as the child shifted in her sleep and Tira immediately adjusted a wing to shield her from falling pebbles. Something important about trust. The eldest activated the crystal, and ancient history began to play in the shared viewing space. Her eyes. 3,000 years ago, the Skrillex had been hunted nearly to extinction. Other species wanted their scales for armor, their fire-producing organs for weapons, their eggs as trophies. The Skrillex population had crashed to fewer than 1,000 individuals, scattered and desperate. They had searched the galaxy for sanctuary, but every species either tried to kill them or turn them away, too afraid of the powerful hunters. Then they encountered humans. A primitive species, barely capable of interstellar travel, living on struggling colony worlds with almost no military power. The Skrillex had expected nothing from these weak creatures. Instead, the humans had offered immediate sanctuary. Not for payment. Not for future favors. Simply because hunting any intelligent species to extinction was wrong. For 200 years, humans had sheltered Skrillex families. They shared food when they had little to spare. They defended Skrillex refugees when the hunters came, even though it meant their own colonies were destroyed. Human children had played with Skrillex hatchlings. Human families had welcomed Skrillex into their homes. Not once had humanity asked for anything in return. When the Skrillex population finally recovered and they claimed Drakenheim as their world, they had left human space promising a debt that could never be repaid. And then, as centuries passed and both species changed, they had forgotten. The Skrillex had isolated themselves, had built walls, had convinced themselves they owed nothing to anyone. But instinct, it seemed, had a longer memory than conscious thought. Her cubs had never been taught about the ancient debt. They had never learned about the humans who saved the Skrillex. Yet when a human child needed warmth and safety, they had responded without hesitation. Some truths were apparently written deeper than memory, passed down through generations in ways that couldn't be erased. Karshiva looked at the sleeping child with completely different eyes now. This wasn't just an intruder. This was a member of the species that had saved her ancestors when no one else would. The child had said her father was hurt. The crash site. A dying human and a child alone on a forbidden world with no hope of rescue. The debt was never repaid, Karshiva said quietly. The eldest counselor nodded, shame and understanding mixing in his ancient eyes. No, it was not. What do you propose? Karshiva stood tall, her decision absolute. I propose we begin now. This child came to us in need just as our ancestors came to humanity in need. We will help her. We will save her father. And we will remind the galaxy that the Skrillex honor their debts, no matter how long it takes. Lily woke up slowly, her mind foggy with the kind of deep sleep that comes after complete exhaustion. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was. Then everything came rushing back. The crash. Her injured father. The cave. The dragon cubs. Her eyes snapped open and she sat up quickly, her heart pounding. The 3 cubs were still there, arranged around her in a protective circle. They made soft chirping sounds when they saw she was awake, almost like they were happy to see her. But now there was a 4th dragon and this one was massive. Lily's breath caught in her throat. The adult dragon was so huge that its head alone was bigger than her dad's entire ship. Its scales were deep red, almost like blood, and its 6 eyes were fixed directly on her. Lily should have screamed. She should have run. But something in those eyes stopped her. They weren't angry or hungry. They were curious, maybe even kind. And the 3 cubs weren't acting scared. They seemed calm, almost proud, like they were showing their mother something special. Please, Lily whispered, her voice cracking. My dad is hurt really bad. He's stuck in our ship and I don't know how to help him. Can you please help us? The massive dragon lowered her head until she was eye level with Lily. When she spoke, her voice was deep and rumbling like distant thunder, but the words were clear English. I can help. My name is Karshiva. These are my cubs. What is your name, small one? Lily. Lily Mitchell. She clutched her stuffed rabbit tighter. You can really help my dad? You're not going to hurt us. Karshiva was quiet for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. 3,000 years ago, when my species was dying, your species saved us. Humans gave us shelter when no one else would. Many humans died protecting my ancestors. That is a debt we never repaid. Today I begin to repay it. Lily didn't fully understand what Karshiva meant about ancient history, but she understood the important part. So you'll save my dad? I will do everything in my power, Karshiva promised. But first I must ask you something. When you entered this cave and saw my cubs, why did you not run away? Lily looked down at her rabbit, thinking about how to explain. I was too tired to run. And they looked scary, but they also looked confused, like they didn't know what to do with me. My dad always tells me that most scary things are just scared themselves. Was I wrong? Something shifted in Karshiva's expression, though Lily couldn't quite read what it meant. No, small one. You were exactly right. Now, can you climb onto my back? I will fly us to your father. Lily's eyes widened. You want me to ride on your back? Like in the old stories? Yes. It is much faster than walking, and your father does not have much time. Karshiva lowered herself as close to the ground as possible and extended one wing like a ramp. With the smallest cub, Tira, gently nudging her forward encouragingly, Lily managed to climb onto Karshiva's back. The scales were warm and surprisingly comfortable, with natural ridges that gave her something to hold onto. Her heart was racing with fear and excitement all mixed together. Okay, I'm ready. The flight was both terrifying and amazing. When Karshiva's powerful wings lifted them into the air, Lily gasped and held on tighter. The ground fell away beneath them, and suddenly they were soaring over the volcanic landscape. The wind rushed past her face, and despite her fear for her father, Lily couldn't help but feel a thrill of wonder. She was flying on a dragon. A real dragon. They reached the crashed ship in just a few minutes. Karshiva landed carefully, and Lily scrambled down and ran toward the wreckage. Dad, I'm back. I brought help. Jake was still pinned under the collapsed panel, and he looked worse than when Lily had left. His skin was pale and covered in sweat, and his breathing was shallow. When his eyes opened and focused on her, they were glassy with pain and fever. Lily? His voice was barely a whisper. Then his gaze shifted to the enormous dragon behind his daughter, and terror flooded his face. No. Lily, get away from it. Run. Dad, no. This is Karshiva. She's nice. She's going to help you. Lily grabbed her father's hand. She promised. Karshiva moved closer, being careful not to make any sudden movements. Tom Mitchell. Your daughter was very brave. She found my nest and earned the trust of my cubs, which has never happened before in all of Skrillex history. I am here to repay an ancient debt my species owes to yours. Jake stared at her, his engineer's mind clearly struggling to process what was happening. You're a Skrillex. You kill anyone who comes here. That's what everyone says. Yes. That is what we tell the galaxy, and it is what we have done for many generations. But your daughter reminded me of something my people forgot. Karshiva turned to Resh, the largest cub who had followed them. Contact the medical facility. Tell them I need emergency surgical equipment adapted for human biology, using protocols from the third migration era. Resh took flight immediately, disappearing back toward wherever the Skrillex lived. Karshiva turned her attention back to Jake, her 6 eyes scanning his injuries with what looked like medical precision. Your leg is crushed. You have broken ribs and internal bleeding. Without treatment you will die within hours. But I can save you if you trust me. What's the third migration era? Jake asked, his voice weak but his mind still working. 3,000 years ago, humans saved the Skrillex from extinction, Karshiva explained as she began carefully removing debris from around Jake's body. Her massive claws moved with surprising delicacy. Your species gave us sanctuary, shared your resources, protected us from hunters. Many human colonies were destroyed because they refused to surrender my ancestors. My species has never forgotten that debt, though we convinced ourselves we had. Your daughter showed my cubs something today. She showed them that trust between our species still exists. Jake looked at Lily, who was holding his hand tightly. You really befriended dragon cubs? They kept me warm, Lily said. And they were nice to me, Dad. They didn't have to be, but they were. Karshiva saw the exact moment when Jake made his decision. The fear left his eyes, replaced by hope. If you can save me, I don't know how I could ever thank you. You already have, Karshiva said simply. Your daughter trusted my cubs when she had every reason to be afraid. That is payment enough. Resh returned quickly with 2 other adult dragons carrying crystalline containers filled with medical equipment. Karshiva recognized the ancient tools, devices that hadn't been used since the last time Skrillex had treated human patients thousands of years ago. The medical facility had managed to recreate them from historical records. Lily, I need you to step back, Karshiva said gently. What I am about to do will look frightening, but I promise I am helping your father. Lily nodded and moved away, though tears were already forming in her eyes. Tira stayed close to her, providing comfort through quiet presence. Karshiva worked with focused precision. She used her fire breath at the lowest possible setting to sterilize the area around Jake's injuries. Then she administered a sedative calculated for his body weight. As Jake slipped into unconsciousness, Karshiva began the delicate work of repairing his internal damage. Her claws, despite their size, moved with incredible precision. She used specialized instruments to seal internal bleeding, repair damaged organs, and stabilize his spine. The broken ribs were carefully set and reinforced with a biomesh that would dissolve as the bones healed naturally. The crushed leg required extensive work, including support scaffolding to help the bones regenerate properly. Through it all, Lily watched with wide eyes, her absolute faith in Karshiva never wavering. Tira kept making soft, comforting sounds, occasionally nuzzling Lily's shoulder. 2 hours passed before Karshiva finally stepped back from her patient. Jake's breathing was steady and strong now. His color had improved dramatically. He would need weeks of recovery, but the immediate danger was over. He would live. Is he going to be okay? Lily asked immediately, rushing to her father's side. He will recover completely, Karshiva confirmed. His injuries were severe, but nothing that cannot be healed with time. Lily threw her arms around Karshiva's massive foreleg, sobbing with relief and joy. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Karshiva felt something warm spread through her chest, an emotion she hadn't experienced in decades. This small human child trusted her completely, believed in her goodness without question. It was humbling and powerful all at once. Resh approached with news. Mother, the galactic communication networks are going wild. Someone detected our medical transport. They know we've made contact with humans. The council says we must decide quickly how to proceed. Karshiva looked at the sleeping human, at his brave daughter, at her own cubs who had known instinctively what her species had forgotten. Some choices were obvious even if they changed everything. Tell the council to prepare a formal announcement, Karshiva said firmly. The Skrillex are about to remind the galaxy that we honor our debts, no matter how many centuries have passed. Jake woke up to warmth and the sound of his daughter's laughter. For a confused moment, he thought he was home, that the crash had been a terrible dream. Then he opened his eyes and saw crystalline walls glowing with soft blue light, and reality came flooding back. He was on Drakenheim, the Forbidden Moon. He'd been dying. And somehow, impossibly, a dragon had saved his life. He tried to sit up and was amazed when his body actually cooperated. The crushing pain in his chest was gone, replaced by a dull ache that felt more like healing than injury. His leg was encased in something that looked like glowing crystal, warm against his skin and surprisingly comfortable. He could wiggle his toes. That seemed like a miracle all by itself. Dad. You're awake. Lily came running over, her face bright with joy. Behind her, 3 enormous dragon cubs followed, moving with surprising gentleness around the small human child. How do you feel? Does it hurt? Karshiva said you'd be okay, but I was still worried. I feel better than I should, Jake said honestly, pulling his daughter into a careful hug. Much better. Where are we? This is a Skrillex healing facility, came Karshiva's deep voice. The massive dragon entered the chamber, somehow managing not to seem threatening despite her size. Your human body is quite resilient. You are recovering faster than I expected. Jake looked at the dragon who had saved his life and felt emotion tighten his throat. You really did it? You saved me. I thought I was dead for sure. Your daughter gave me no choice, Karshiva said, and there was something almost affectionate in her tone. She asked for help with such trust that refusing would have shamed my entire species. Besides, we owed humanity a debt 3,000 years overdue. It was past time we began repayment. Jake watched as Lily laughed at something Tira did, the smallest cub gently tickling her with the tip of her tail. His 7-year-old daughter was playing with dragon cubs like they were puppies. The absurdity and beauty of it made him want to laugh and cry at the same time. She has a gift for making friends, he said quietly. Always has. She sees the good in everyone. That is a rare quality, Karshiva observed. And a valuable one. My cubs have adopted her as nest kin. In Skrillex culture, that is a bond of family, of protection. They will consider her part of their family for the rest of their lives. Really? Jake looked at his daughter with new wonder. She made family bonds with dragons in one night? She did what no diplomat or warrior has accomplished in 3 centuries, Karshiva said. She trusted us when she had every reason to fear us. That kind of courage deserves to be honored. Jake was quiet for a moment, then asked the question that had been weighing on him. What happens now? I know Drakenheim is forbidden territory. The whole galaxy knows that. Will we be allowed to leave? And if we do leave, will anyone believe what happened here? Karshiva settled onto her haunches, considering her words carefully. The galaxy is in chaos right now. Word has spread that the Skrillex made contact with humans, that we saved trespassers instead of destroying them. Every major government is demanding explanations. The Galactic Council has sent 4 different diplomatic teams requesting information. Trade confederations are panicking. News networks are running constant coverage. That sounds complicated, Jake said carefully. It is. But it is also an opportunity. Karshiva's 6 eyes gleamed with something that might have been excitement. For 3,000 years, my species has hidden behind walls of fear and hostility. We told ourselves we wanted isolation, but truly we were afraid of being hunted again. We convinced the galaxy we were dangerous monsters so they would leave us alone. But that is no way to live, Jake Mitchell. That is merely survival, not life. So what are you going to do? Before Karshiva could answer, Resh flew into the chamber at high speed, clearly agitated. Mother. The Galactic Council delegation has arrived at the outer boundary. They are demanding immediate access and explanations. The Council of Elders wants your guidance on how to proceed. Karshiva stood, her scales rippling with colors that Jake was learning to recognize as determination. Tell the Elders I will address the Galactic delegation personally. And tell them I am bringing the humans. Jake's eyes widened. You want us to be part of this? Lily and me? You are the reason this is happening, Karshiva said simply. Your daughter changed everything. The galaxy should see her, should understand what she did. Besides, you are the living proof that Skrillex and humans can trust each other again. 20 minutes later, Jake found himself standing in what could only be described as a diplomatic chamber, though it was built on a scale meant for dragons. The room was enormous, with a central platform surrounded by massive viewing screens. Lily held his hand tightly, trying to look brave even though her eyes were wide with nervousness. The 3 cubs flanked them protectively, which Jake found both touching and surreal. The viewing screens activated, showing the faces of various alien species. Jake recognized a few from his years of cargo hauling. Tall, thin Nexarians with their multiple arms. Squat, armored Krellians who controlled most of the shipping lanes. Even a few humans from Earth's diplomatic corps, looking absolutely stunned at what they were seeing. Karshiva stood at the center of the platform with Jake, Lily, and the cubs beside her. Her voice, when she spoke, carried the weight of absolute authority. I am Matriarch Karshiva of the Skrillex. For 300 years, we have maintained isolation from the galactic community. Today that isolation ends. The viewing screens erupted with noise as multiple species tried to speak at once. Karshiva raised one massive claw and silence fell immediately. 3,000 years ago, the Skrillex species was hunted nearly to extinction. We searched the galaxy for sanctuary and found none. Every species either tried to kill us or turned us away. Every species except one. She gestured toward Jake and Lily. Humans gave us shelter when we had nothing to offer in return. They shared food when their own colonies were starving. They defended us when hunters came even though it meant their own destruction. Human children played with Skrillex hatchlings. Human families welcomed us into their homes. For 200 years, humanity protected us and asked for nothing. When we finally recovered and claimed this world, we left human space promising a debt that could never be repaid. Then we forgot. The chamber was completely silent now. Jake could see shock on every alien face displayed on the screens. 2 days ago, a human ship crashed on Drakenheim, Karshiva continued. A man and his daughter trespassing on forbidden ground. By our laws, they should have been destroyed immediately. But this child, this 7-year-old girl named Lily Mitchell, walked into my nest and did something remarkable. She trusted my cubs. She asked for help. She fell asleep in their nest as if she belonged there. And my cubs, who have never accepted any alien presence, protected her as one of their own. Karshiva lowered her head toward Lily, who looked up at the massive dragon with complete trust. This child reminded us of who we are, of what we owe. She showed us that trust between our species still exists after 3,000 years. The ancient bond between Skrillex and humans was not broken. It was merely dormant, waiting for someone brave enough to awaken it. A human diplomat on one of the screens found his voice. Matriarch Karshiva, are you saying that Drakenheim is no longer forbidden to humans? I am saying more than that, Karshiva replied. I am formally announcing the restoration of the Skrillex-Human Alliance. Drakenheim will open to human visitors. We will share our technology, our knowledge, our protection. And in return, we ask only what humanity asked of us 3,000 years ago: friendship. The diplomatic chamber exploded with questions and exclamations. Jake felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. His daughter had accidentally triggered a complete shift in galactic politics. Lily tugged on his hand and whispered, "Dad, did I do something important?" Jake knelt down and hugged his daughter tight. "Yes, sweetheart. You did something amazing. You made friends with dragons and now you've changed the whole galaxy." A Krellian representative's voice cut through the noise. "This is unprecedented. How can we trust that this isn't some Skrillex trick? You've been hostile for centuries." Karshiva's response was immediate. "Look at this child. Look at my cubs protecting her. Look at the father I saved from death. These are not the actions of hostility. These are the actions of honor, of repaying debts long overdue. If you cannot trust words, then trust what you see before you." One of the human diplomats, an older woman with kind eyes, spoke up. "Matriarch Karshiva, humanity remembers the old stories. We never forgot what happened 3,000 years ago. If the Skrillex wish to restore our alliance, Earth will welcome it gladly." Karshiva inclined her head respectfully. "Then it is agreed. The alliance is restored." As the diplomatic session continued, Lily fell asleep leaning against Tira, exhausted by all the excitement. The three cubs immediately adjusted their positions to make her more comfortable, and Jake watched with wonder as his daughter slept peacefully surrounded by dragons while the galaxy watched and began to understand that something fundamental had changed. Retry.